Earlier today, I uploaded a video of two Israeli puppets in London carrying out their puppet show at the behest of war criminal and bloodthirsty terrorist Benjamin Netanyahu. You know who I'm talking about. Antony Blinken is in London to what he says reset US-UK relationship, whatever that means. I mean, these clowns only know how to create new silly names to fool the public to ensure that they stay relevant in their criminal activities. They address the media, and as expected, they spent quite a lot of time and energy on projecting Russia as a villain in the Ukraine conflict. They also blamed Iran, no prize for guessing, not in the context of the Gaza conflict, but for allegedly supplying ballistic missiles. Yes, ballistic missiles to Russia. These idiots seriously have no shame in insulting your collective intelligence, the collective intelligence of the common public. The fact that they get away with the biggest crimes against humanity, they now believe that they can stoop to any level of absurdity to justify their warmongering at the expense of taxpayers' money, your money, our money. Watch what this war criminal from the US had to say.
Now, to wage his war of aggression on Ukraine, Putin is also relying increasingly on help from Iran and the DPRK. In these instances, to get actual weapons in clear violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions. Now, Tehran has long supplied deadly drones. It's built a drone factory in Russia. It's trained Russian personnel on how to operate them. For some time, the United States has warned of an additional threat, the provision by Iran of ballistic missiles to Russia for use in Ukraine. We've warned Tehran publicly, we've warned Tehran privately, that taking this step would constitute a dramatic escalation. Dozens of Russian military personnel have been trained in Iran to use the Fata 360 close-range ballistic missile system, which has a maximum range of 75 miles. Russia has now received shipments of these ballistic missiles and will likely use them within weeks in Ukraine against Ukrainians.
This is nothing but to attempt to make a case to impose more sanctions against Iran. And I wouldn't be surprised if the US would soon launch military strikes against Iran, because that remains the only unfinished goal for war criminal Netanyahu in the Middle East after he successfully managed to convince the US, the UK, and the Western allies to completely destroy the region with their illegal invasions of Iraq, Libya, and Syria, among others. Well, they ravaged the countries after countries and killed more than 1 million people. Last week, Blinken was telling reporters that the need of the hour was to gather facts after Israeli terrorists murdered another American citizen. This US national was not Jewish, had not served with the IDF, or had dual Israeli nationality, just like maybe Blinken. She was a US national with Turkish descent. So neither Blinken nor any other department of the Biden-Harris administration was keen to condemn Israel for her murder. Blinken changed his tune today, however. You know why? Because the Israeli terror outfit, the IDF, admitted that it was responsible for murdering Aiznur Ezri Aigi. He even went to a step further to pretend as if he was indeed critical of the Israeli action.
Secretary Blinken, could I ask you about a couple of aspects of the Middle East? The Israel Defense Forces just a moment ago released an investigation, or released some preliminary findings into the death of an American citizen, Miss Aiznur Eniegi. Could you say, they said that she was killed most likely by Israeli fire, but unintentionally. Are you confident with that assessment? Does the United States want to see anything further? Are you confident with the assessment that this was unintentional? And what more do you want Israel to do? Could there be repercussions? For both of you, could I ask you about the International Criminal Court? It seems that in the coming days there could be a formal decision on whether to seek an arrest warrant for Prime Minister Netanyahu, among others. Mr. Foreign Secretary, the Labour government, of course, has taken a slightly different stance from your predecessors, from the Conservatives on this. Could you say what your position is, whether you support going ahead, and is there unity between the two allies on this? Thank you.
Sean, thank you very much. With regard to the tragic killing of Eisenhower, I think what we saw of this investigation is it seems to show what eyewitnesses have said and made clear, that her killing was both unprovoked and unjustified. No one should be shot and killed for attending a protest. No one should have to put their life at risk just for freely expressing their views. In our judgment, Israeli security forces need to make some fundamental changes in the way that they operate in the West Bank, including changes to their rules of engagement. We've long seen reports of the security forces looking the other way when extremist settlers use violence against Palestinians. We've seen reports of excessive force by Israeli security forces against Palestinians. And now we have the second American citizen killed at the hands of Israeli security forces. It's not acceptable. It has to change. And we'll be making that clear to the senior-most members of the Israeli government. Now, we're looking carefully at the results of this investigation, but even on an initial read, and even accepting it at face value, it's clear that there are serious issues that need to be dealt with, and we will insist that they be dealt with.
Just imagine if Hamas or other outfits were suspected to have killed an American national. Would Blinken be reacting with such calmness and with his sanity intact? Would he have given the same measured response that he was giving today? This war criminal then sought to fool all of us once again by lying about progress in the ceasefire talk for Gaza. Let's have no doubt, okay? The reality is that there is no ceasefire negotiation underway at the moment, anywhere at the moment, anywhere. Not in Israel, not in occupied Palestinian territories, not in Qatar, not in Egypt, not in America, not in the UK. And yet, this guy lies through his teeth to say that the ceasefire talks are on. No one is discussing ceasefire, but this war criminal became a mathematician to derive a percentage, saying that 90% agreement had been made. By whom? Not that there is any doubt in anyone's mind that this man is a criminal, a war criminal who earns his living by lying incessantly. On 7th of August, don't take my word for it. I don't talk without facts. You want to see there are enough. The internet is replete with video evidence to say that this guy is a serial liar. I'll give you a few examples here. On 7th of August, more than a month ago, Blinken said that the negotiations had reached the final stage and it was only a question of crossing the finish line, his word.
And as the President said today, following his conversations with President al-Sisi and with Amir Tamim, this is the moment. This is the decisive moment. The negotiations have reached their final stage, and we believe strongly that they should come across the finish line very, very soon. And that, besides changing everything for people in Gaza, bringing the hostages home, giving us an opportunity to build a more enduring peace for Gaza, also opens up other possibilities, other prospects more broadly in terms of de-escalating tensions and bringing real security and stability.
He arrived in Israel to have a 3-hour-long closed-door meeting with Netanyahu, and then he comes out of that meeting to stun everyone by saying that what was known as the ceasefire proposal will now be called as the bridging proposal. whatever that means.
The president put forward a proposal with Qatar and with Egypt to try to bridge the gaps that remain between the parties so that we could get agreement to what the president put out there a couple of months ago. In a very constructive meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu today, he confirmed to me that Israel accepts the bridging proposal, that he supports it.
What we learned then was that Netanyahu was no longer interested in the ceasefire at all. Netanyahu told him that Israel will have its military presence in Philadelphia corridor, bordering Egypt and the central Gaza. Blinken had no option but to return to the US after being left embarrassed by Netanyahu. But you know what he said last week? Last week, he repeated his lie again when he told reporters in Haiti that he was very close to getting a ceasefire. Exactly what he has said a month ago on the 7th of August, that he was very close to reaching a ceasefire. This despite the fact that there is absolutely no evidence to suggest that the concerned parties are holding any talks to reach a ceasefire.
The experience that we've had over the last couple of months, where there's been extraordinary work done to get a framework agreement that both parties signed on to, then to work to fill in some of the gaps because the framework agreement doesn't have every detail in it. That remained to be negotiated, things that need to be implemented. We've been doing that work. And I think based on what I've seen, 90% is agreed. But there are a few critical issues that remain where we need to be able to get agreement. And they really go to how certain aspects of the agreement would be implemented.
And what to say about our own David Lammy? Lammy, just like his US counterpart, represents the rare class of people. People who are intellectually challenged, morally bankrupt, and mentally depraved, all at the same time. Lammy also suffers from some unknown inferiority complex. No wonder he kept on addressing Blinken as Tony.
Well, welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
This reminded me of similar action by Narendra Modi, Indian Prime Minister, who famously addressed Donald Trump by his first name, Doland. Not my word, but this is how Modi addressed him in public. Modi had his reason to do this because he was once banned from entering the UK and the US and many European countries because of his role in a genocide in Gujarat that killed more than 4,000 people, mostly Muslims, in 2002. So this was Modi's way of informing the world that he was no longer a pariah, a rogue. He was equal to Doland or Donald Trump. What was Lammy trying to achieve here today? Lammy also exposed himself more by not answering in no uncertain terms that his government would honor the verdict of the International Criminal Court even if it decides to issue an arrest warrant against Benjamin Netanyahu. Instead, this is what he said.
I think the important thing to stress in great democracies such as ours is our belief in the separation of powers. There is an important forum for lawyers and the judiciary and our courts, and then there is also an important forum for politicians and those who represent the people. We've always been clear in the UK in our belief in the international rule of law, the rules-based order, and in IHL issues which are fundamentally important. And we took a decision last week in relation to arms exports that were quasi-legal on the basis of our law as they stand. We believe in international law, we believe in the Statute of Rome, but these must be decisions for the international courts to determine. I don't want to comment on the assessment that they will reach. I qualified as a lawyer, in part because of the great Harvard Law School, but I'm going to leave it to the lawyers to determine these very complex matters.
And this chap represents the country called Great Britain as the chief diplomat globally. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support on buymecoffee.com and Patreon. If you too want to be a part of this movement, please visit these two websites. Details are in description. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.